Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And welcome, everybody. We're going to talk about something today that can very much impact your life. I've learned a little bit about it from her, and it's made a difference in my life and actually put it on my radar. I'm talking about Feng Shui, and we're also going to get into Chinese astrology as well. And she's an expert. She's a master at both. Aelita Leto joins us right now. How are you today?
I'm very good, Steve. Thank you so much for having me. As always, it's our little chit chat time for about fun and loving project, which is the Feng Shui and Chinese astrology, metaphysics overall.
Yeah, there's so much that happens there. And you opened my eyes to Feng Shui, because my initial view of what Feng Shui is how we move furniture, place things and desks in your house or your workspace. And that kind of dictates your success, your happiness, and all of that. But it goes layers deeper. Feng Shui is much, much more than that. Why don't we talk a little bit deeper about implementing Feng Shui in our lives? And you could start at any point you want. If you just want to even give somebody an example or the definition of Feng Shui for somebody that's unfamiliar.
Well, the shortest definition of Feng Shui is adaptation. No matter how you put it, either when we are in our space or when we are unknown space, where we're traveling or we're settling, we continuously adapting. We continuously getting adjusted. You know, we've been traveling a lot. We've been kind of moving it around, and people also as a settling in their homes or in their houses is they're adapting to their nature. They're adapting to their kind of intuitive capacity, what they want to achieve. So they're creating this space environment that is supportive to it. So Feng Shui goes beyond not just about, moving furniture, which is also very important. At the same time, it's very important to also understand where are in the plateau of this earth you are. So the land dictates quite a bit of the feel, how you feel about your home or your neighborhood, your country, etc. So I think there's a bigger connection to the land, and that's what I would prioritize land before the maybe furniture layout.
Okay, well let's center on that. So you're talking about the land where your house or your job is physically located?
Yes. So just think about sometimes when we are in the neighborhood, and you might notice some of the corner houses might be kind of a little bit like rough, looking a little bit like a torn out, like a little bit like indented or somehow impacted. And then there will be, two houses down in the middle of the street. As you walk, it could be, more facade is more laid out. So the edginess of the neighborhood or edginess of the towns or edginess of the certain aspect, like when you in your own space, sometimes you have these corners. When you make a corner, it's like you say, ouch, it's about placement. It's about location in a smaller scale or the largest scale.
So interestingly, I just want to illustrate your point, because all of us, as you're saying that we're thinking it. And in my neighborhood, by the way, I'm moving in like 2 months, but I can say,
hey, that was in your chart.
It was. You knew before I was moving. Anyway, there is a corner house in my neighborhood. It's maybe 12 houses away. They've got some challenges there. That's all I'm going to say at that corner house. Coincidence? I don't know, but it definitely is on the corner. And, like you say, it looks like you described, and there's some internal struggles there, shall we say.
Right. So it takes a personality. If somebody is, let's say, worn out, or somebody who is basically maybe neglecting the outside, or maybe does not want to be in connection to the neighborhood, mm-hmm. They will probably also will see the facade or the attractiveness to that home is going to be also limited.
Gotcha.
So on the other hand, the force of the energy, the physical energy, not maybe even with the wind, even the cars or the force when it's going by that side, it's just continuously going to be impacted as well. So classically, like some people in my, clients sometimes call and say, well, I have a T-junction house, or I have a corner house. What should I do? Is this is good or this is bad? And I always say it depends. It's not about good or bad. It's about what do you do with the quality of energy and how you can maintain it or how you can improve it. So when we talk about the exposure, when we talk about, let's say, maybe this example, corner home, it's going to be about how contained is the main door, how protected you are, and how you differentiate the energy that you are. Let's say you drive up from the street level, how much space there is, you transition between almost like that's, and that's typically is your front yard, or maybe a gate, or maybe a fence, or maybe a log, maybe there's a beautiful setting around. That's all those elements will stop the chi, that will allow you to slow down. Sometimes it's an animal, sometimes it's a dog, right?
Yep.
So it really depends on the quality of the external environment as well. And then you add, how is the individual, the person who lives, how secure or insecure the person is. So you're going to start also notice, maybe there's a house, sometimes you don't see even the name or the number of the street or the house, and you kind of wonder, where does he live? How can I find? All those things are indicate also the, how much feng shui is assisting or not, or how person is open or not. And it's just it's kind of a data that allows me to manipulate or to improve. Depends what you want. If you want to be fined, I will make sure that your house number is well visible, and I will make sure your bell, that your ring, at the door is working, and there's a beautiful light especially in the evening, right? So there's the ambience. How do we connect is the expression, and that's the part of the feng shui.
Interesting. Now you said the word chi. I know chi. Explain chi for anybody that doesn't.
Taoists would say something that was not explainable. That's like a Tao. The chi is not a thing. It's a whole experience, as tangible and non-tangible. When you have a mind and vision and that intention, what you want to implement, it's driven by chi. You create the chi.
Now, is chi always good, or is it sometimes bad? Is it I always like to look at the positive part of things. So I look at it
There's
as
no such a thing or good or bad. What you make of it is good or bad. Our conversation, like right now, I say, is this good or bad? We're having conversation.
right.
Is it good?
I'd say so.
Is it bad? I don't think
I'd say
so.
no, not at all.
No, it's so the chi is like we right now experiencing chi. We interacting. It's a part of our field. Your chi and my chis are all connected, and it's creating another experience. It's expanding experience. So it's very hard to define chi as an energy. It's almost like how do you define wind? Think about it. Where do we see the wind? I can see wind now through my window.
You can't really see it though.
I can.
How do you say that you can see it if you're looking?
Because I have trees, and those trees.
You're seeing. No, hold on. Oh, you're seeing what the wind is doing. You're not actually seeing the wind. Tell me, you can actually see the wind.
I can see the wind.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can. Because that's the movement.
Okay, and I got you there.
Yeah, you don't define. So there's more ways. I think that's a beautiful way what we can talk about, like feng shui and many other schools and interpretations of feng shui that will deviate away. We don't have to be strict. We're not going just by the rules. You have to go by your intuition, by your experience, by knowledge, by wisdom, by what you see, what you interpret. That whole complexity overall is it could be feng shui, it could be the wind, it could be chi. It's all together. It's your individual interpretation of it and how I can communicate. How does the artist, like you are, would draw or paint wind?
I would paint the effects of the wind. So a tree, swaying, waves on the
Yeah.
ocean. But I view it as that is if I'm not seeing the winds and I can't see the chi, but I can see the effects of.
Can't you feel it? But don't
Well,
you
of course,
involve?
of course.
See, so our experience is not only limited to the one expression. Our overall experience, and also in Feng Shui, is expression of our all senses. I can change your Feng Shui not just by adding, let's say you tell me, well, I need some more, oh, Aelita, I would like to be more creative. And I would go by the book and I say, well, you need to add more wood chi. What does that mean? It doesn't mean that you are adding the table made of wood. No. It means this can be interpreted. You can start be inspired by having kids having their drawings displayed. Let's say if you're a parent and you have the little kids and you see their art, what they do when they're little, and that's why that we have as a parents, that's our kid-like kind of interpretation. That's a wood chi, something very navis, something very, simple, something like, just the sprouts, something that's intuitively makes you think first thought is fresh thought is a first thought. So the wood chi could be also something new that you never experienced before. Like our today's meeting is very new.
First time. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. It's the first time. And it was like, we'd have no any predisposition. We don't have any expectations. We are kid-like chi. Sometimes I can change or add that wood chi through by naming. What will be the most, most kind of kids-like name for something that would inspire you? Let's say, but if you wouldn't have to start doing cartoons.
Name meaning what?
Like just giving a name. What will be most like that, from childhood?
Well, I'll tell you, back in the day, I almost became a syndicated cartoonist, and the name of the character in the cartoon was Wellington. So there's a name. There's a name. I don't know.
So that will be if you would kind of say, well, I need my creativity journal. I would call this Wellington Creativity Journal because it would instantly kind of initiate you into that mode. And for each individual, it's different. So we kind of started talking about these 5 elements. But the wood and everything starts with the wood chi. Everything starts with the initiation.
And to define wood chi, we're talking about very basic, something very earthy, if you will, just, organic, that kind of thing.
I talk about seed. And I talk about wind. Those are the 2 areas directly is correlates in Feng Shui. If those who have, let's say, compass, right, the wheel, and sometimes they know that we correlate wood energy from the east and from the southeast, right? So the east is like thunder, and southeast is the wind. And I think and then you can start thinking why. And I'll say, well, where does everything, our abundance comes from? It comes from the springtime, comes from the awakening the land, comes from the planting the seed. When we plant the seed, we're planting the opportunities. So the correlative thinking to the spring, to the seed, to the something that you are planting potential, that's the wood chi. That's the wood energy. That is what we kind of awakening, and correlating right now. We're talking in the springtime. It's April. In a different parts of the world, the spring is expressed in different ways, in different shapes. Not everything is sunny and shiny, and not like in California, everything is blooming, right? Some other parts, there just might be like first, freshness of the air, or the day is becoming longer. Some areas of spring is when they start seeing the ice in the rivers are melting and cracking. And that is, again, that's like a dragon is awakening. That's another symbolic aspect from the Chinese metaphysics. So you see the interpretation of any of those 5 elements could be dependent where you culturally from, how you relate to your own land and your physical environment, and also your family traditions. So all of those things are adaptation. And again, we go back to the Feng Shui, which is
Would you
adaptation.
say, and by the way, I want everybody to know that we're talking to Aelita Leto, and she is a feng shui master. And I'm just going to lay in here too that we had a conversation a while back, and you looked at my Chinese astrological chart, which I was never even on my radar. I know about called traditional astrology. Didn't even know that was any connected with feng shui, but the things that you told me, not even knowing me, were spot on. And I just want to share that with everybody that you're plugged into it. Give everybody your website real quick.
My website is www.aelitaleto.com, which stands for Aelita, Leto.com. Thank you.
Would you say that springtime is an important time in the world of feng shui?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. But the more important even, I mean, every time is important. The present moment is important, right? For us to identify what is the present moment is more important than to what we're expecting. We have a potential what we're expecting, right? And our conduct also allows us to drive, like, what can we do with the things? For example, in some areas of the world, as right now, right, is the time of the planting the seeds.
Mm-hmm.
Is it physically and metaphysically? And how do we prepare for that? How does the earth, the land or environment, physical environment, allows or reveals those opportunities to us? And I think this is what the feng shui originally was, is how do we live in the rhythm with the cycles of time, but time not in a linear world, but in a cyclical way. It was a reappearance. So when things are timely, when we are in the right place at the right time and doing the right things, then it's the best feng shui.
100%. But how do you put yourself in that?
By creating the familiarity, by getting into patterns, by recognizing larger patterns, or putting ourselves in a schedule, or putting ourselves in a rhythm. That's why we have a day and night. What happens to you when we don't sleep for like 7 days on a row? We getting like a zombie, like a ghost sleep patterns, right? We're not functioning. So then we need to reset. So I think it's just the nature is so wise. The nature, the wisdom of the nature gives us so much opportunities to adjust and to be, abundantly present, that we actually deviate away from it. And sometimes our expectations are disappointments. Like, well, I have by the calendar, spring started, last week, and I'm not planting. Why? Well, it's not timely. It's not everything is by calendar. Our meeting is by calendar, but it's also was about something intuitively putting things together.
Sure.
Right.
And it's interesting, I shared before that I'm going to be moving. I will move before the spring is over. So in my mind, I'm thinking I'm actually planting a seed right there.
And you're purging, you're selecting, you're purging, because what you don't want to do, like when we planting the seed, we are actually preparing the earth, we're preparing the ground, right? We energetically becoming in alignment. We're looking for the best time, to plant the seed that is not going to be in the middle of the rains or storms to wash away, or it's going to be, there's so many things we observe and do that it's timely. I mean, regarding your move, you're probably going to be purging and bringing that, thinking about, what do I bring with me?
Mm-hmm.
What do I leave behind? How do I, it's not like you want to bring, you're going to start fresh, like start new, right?
So I have a question, and I've been wrestling with this, and I even shared it with some friends, and I don't necessarily have the answer. I want to bring with me some things, but I want to make sure that they don't contain negative energy.
Uh-huh.
So what is maybe in the feng shui world, how to ensure that it's got the right energy? You don't want to just throw things away because they're You can repurpose them. You can use them again, be it a bed, a dresser, whatever it might be. But how do you ensure that the energy is positive energy?
Okay. First of all, you always ask yourself, do you love it? Do you
Okay.
love it? I want you to give me a promise. Whatever you bring to your new place, of course, there will be a practicality and, and a kind of, emotionality to it. When you speak to the, do I love it? How I can use it?
I wouldn't bring it unless I love it. And not love it for emotional reasons, just love it because this works for me. This is my style. This is my thing. Yeah,
Exactly.
it has no, there's a disconnect there in any other way
Yeah.
except that, yeah, you know what? Why do I want to buy something else? Because I do love it. I'm okay with it. I like it. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's me.
And the other thing is letting go. Letting go. If let's say if there's the things that you've been holding on to, ask those things. Because when something we neglect or hold on to it, and we neglect and we're not utilizing, we're creating stagnation. And we also creating stagnation, and it's like, oh, and kind of pity is like, oh, I wish I would have, or maybe one day I will need it. I would say disperse, let it go. And what happens is when especially if you have a chance to give, to someone who express the joy. Let's say some people say, I know people like sometimes hold on to clothes. I mean, I'm there as well. And they say, oh, when I'm going to be in this size, when I'm going to get, gonna fit, it will be, and then they feel disappointed because it's been a year or 2 or 3. Instead, by giving to the others, it's you observe the joy, and you I think you instantly experiencing the kind of that happiness. I just had one thought I want to share, but go ahead.
I'm going to throw another question. We went down different paths here today.
It's okay. That's a flexibility. That's we're supposed to talk.
When you talk about, where you live, does the number of your house and maybe even the street, does it have something to say in terms of feng shui? Is there something there or is there not?
There's a lot of it's like my house 432.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's 432. It's kind of easy. It's there's different interpretations. We know that people have tendencies of reading into, like, Asian people would not buy houses with number 4. Do you know why?
Nope.
Because 4 phonetically, when you pronounce in Chinese number 4, is as death or die.
Wow.
So they have tendency not to buy because in their in a language, in a sense, when they would see, oh, my house number's 4, blah, 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 that would give them emotion that I'm going to be dying, or it relates to death. Okay, that's the one. Wow. There's superstitions also about the number 13 in different cultures, right?
Yep.
All this comes to how you can pivot and how you make changes. With the Asian foods, I simply write out as 4, F-O-U-R, like 4. You don't have to, like, or 21. Some people like also, when you have a number 21, right? If they write it out, 21. It's just the different way of representation of the house number.
You just gave me a thought, and it's not about me, but I'm just sharing it. Where I'm going to go is 173, and I added the numbers up just now, and it comes out obviously to 11.
11, which is a very magical, it's very divine number.
This is where I'm going with that. And I believe you told me that, and somebody else told me that it's also a very spiritual number.
Yeah.
And I think if you were in numerology, I think if you take the day you were born, the month, and the year, let's say it's 1974, and you add those separately, that gives you your life path number. I think my life path number is 11. So
Wow.
I don't know if there's a connection here, but
Well, there must be connection. If you're paying attention to it, there's always connection. Well, in Feng Shui, we do look at the date of birth and the time of birth, because when we calculate what is your personal directionality, that becomes a vital for me to consult. You know,
yeah.
when I let's say it can be a good practitioner, a good Feng Shui practitioner will never say, "Oh, this is bad for you." Good practitioner will always say, "You know what? I know how to adjust that." Because everything in nature is adjustable and adaptable. There's no such a thing that is something is really drastically good or bad. It gives me
Interesting.
opportunities to find a place and make it better before I leave this earth.
I
That's
love the way you put that. And it's so funny that we're all so negative and we're looking for the bad, the negative. Um, but you look at it as an opportunity. It's an opportunity
absolutely, it's
once you identify.
opportunity.
Yeah.
Well, the anything that's kind of, let's say, bad happens in your life or in your path is the edge of opportunities. Like, I think the old Buddhist saying is like, any time that you are on the edge of the cliff, never think that you are a rock. Think that you are a bird. You fly into the next rim.
That's great.
So do you.
Yeah, that's great. I love that actually. And I firmly prescribe to when something happens, it didn't happen to you. It happened for you.
For you. Yep.
For you.
And I know I deviated a little bit away from your question regarding what to do since you're going to be moving, and that might be also useful for others. One of the very simple things during the move, or sometimes when you buy things on a like secondhand or people, antiques, anything that you can expose to the light, sunlight, refresh. And sometimes you also can make maybe a bathe with the sea salt, and just to wipe it off with the inside and out. And then you can, of course, you can also smudge it, like using the incense sticks or using the Palo Santo incense sticks, or sage.
Sage.
Or
Yeah.
Sage becomes very intense, but when you do something like Palo Santo in your space, it's very, very basic techniques that you can do clockwise, just on this, but always have your thinking, add the prayer, add the intention,
And
add the, like, if it feels heavy, do it one more time. No, nothing prevents you, but truly exposing to the light, to the sunlight, to daylight, is the most powerful, because there's no shadows will ever exist or will be, part of that piece after it's exposed to the sun.
wow, never thought of that, but it makes perfect sense. And I can't believe we're just about out of time.
Wow.
And I just realized too, the month and day that I was born, if you add it together, talked about 11, it's 11.
Hey,
I
it's
don't
divine.
maybe.
It's divine.
I don't want to look for it. It's just when it's there, it's like, it's interesting. Okay. But when you read my chart and it was just, we briefly did it. The things that you said, really, I want everybody to know, was so on target. And we only had a conversation for 20 minutes before that. You know nothing about me at that time. And just having the time that I was born, month, day, year, was profound in terms of what you told me. And there's other things you told me, and I'm waiting for them to transpire. But you said they were going to be later in the year, possibly next year.
Well, just I'm not, as you know, I'm not a fortune teller.
Yeah.
I'm not pretending to be that. But what that experience shows us, or shows you, that understanding the sequence of time, understanding the patterns, understanding the rhythm of nature, that's what you're experiencing. It's a natural, something that you base on your date and time of birth, and the basis, you just tapping into the cycles of time. It is a predisposition at birth, but how you're revealing your life and what you're doing with it, you're just walking that path. It's yours. It's not mine or anybody's else. You chose that. And that's what's so beautiful about the Chinese astrology. It's not a prediction based on something magical. It's prediction of being very in tune with the cycles of time and cycles of your time and the universal cycles.
Basically, it's a timeline And once you know how to read the timeline or interpret it, that's where you find answers, you find comfort maybe. And just what you did was, it's almost as if I just looked in at what's going on with life. Nothing we did to change it. All we just did was interpret it. I look at it this way: life is a fuse, and the fuse is always burning. So make the most of it before the fuse goes out, because it will. We know it will.
Well, but it's going to be in a different form. Then you're becoming your ancestry, and your work or your intention or your purpose, it never really depletes itself. Right now you're in a physical form, but at some point, you and I, we're going to be in a metaphysical form, when they will be listening the voice, and we might be in heavens. And that's how the history manifests itself as well. So
yeah, great talking with you. Give everybody your website one more time.
www.aelitaleto.com. I spell it is AELITALETO.com, and my number 408-768-9496. Visit the website, easy to sign up. Have any questions, I'll be there to serve. I love what I do.
And I love that you love what you do, and I love what you do too. So here's to, can I say, here's to positive chi? Can we say positive chi, or chi's just chi?
Chi's just chi. It's like energy.
Well, if it's good energy, I want good energy. That's what I'm looking for.
That is it. If you say it's a good energy, well, this will be like, what feels good, and you make it better. Can you go into places and say, oh, this feels good?
Sure.
That's the Feng Shui. That's the chi.
Well, I'm looking for positive chi. That's all I want.
Make it positive. Mm-hmm. You're a reflection of you.
Yes, you make it positive, right? Yeah. I look forward to catching up again sometime soon.
So that's going to be next week.
More good chi. All right, I'm sorry I said it again. I was just more chi that suits you. How's that? Is that okay?
Perfect.
All right,
yes.
I'm on to it now. All right, Aelita, great talking with you, and we'll catch up next week.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
Bye.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you can now listen live on the MyTuner Radio and online Radio Box apps for iOS, Android, and the Amazon App Store. Or check us out online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on onlineradiobox.com/US so you don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.